5 Live Formula One.
Cars have taken to the track here in Melbourne. F1 2026 is officially underway. Practice 2 has just finished a few moments ago. We're still in the commentary box. It's Harry Benjamin with you. Alongside me is the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley and the BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. We've always threatened to do a post-practice pod, and here it is, but it's a one-off, I think. So I'm hoping. No, thank you for your company. Day one learnings, I think, is the first bit of track running of a whole new era of Formula One. And I think actually, well, let's just start with the biggest fumble, I think it's fair to say. The biggest shock up and down the pit lane, but obviously it wasn't a shock because we saw it in testing. Aston Martin, Mark, and a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, as you said, it's maybe not a surprise. They've come into the weekend with incredibly low expectations, but even so, even despite all of that, seeing it play out, it's so bad. They did very, very little in FP1 this morning. Adrian Newey did a press conference. Of course, Adrian Newey, the team principal nowadays, did a press conference just detailing how dire the situation was. From a technical point of view, one of the major weak points they've got is the battery that keeps getting damaged by heavy vibrations in the car. They're down to their last 2 of those in existence, and they've got to try and get through a race weekend. And even if they can get the car to do laps, those vibrations are still so severe that the drivers are suggesting the vibrations are actually hurting them and will cause nerve damage to their hands. So they've got almost zero chance of getting to the end of a Grand Prix, even if they can manage to start it.
Yeah, Adrian Newey, a second remarkable press conference in 24 hours this afternoon in Melbourne. And this one was even better than the first one in many ways in terms of show business and popcorn. You know, he detailed how Honda have ended up in this place, basically. He said that when they pulled out of Formula One officially at the end of 2021, they disbanded their entire power unit team effectively. When they put it back together again, he said that in a quote I think that's going to go down for the ages, most of them had gone off to work on solar panels or whatever, and they didn't bring the old ones back. They just got a whole load of new people in who had got no experience in Formula One. I asked him how Fernando Alonso was dealing with this. Of course, Alonso's got experience of Honda messing things up from 10 years ago with McLaren. He said it's a hard mental place for Fernando to be at the moment, and I think it is for Adrian Newey as well. He said he felt powerless. I don't think he meant it to be a pun, but of course it was. And it's been the most extraordinary weekend, and we're only on Friday as far as Aston Martin is concerned. But there was a slight chink of light in P2, as Mark said. Fernando Alonso completed nearly 20 laps. Okay, he's 5 seconds off the pace, but that does suggest maybe this packaging that Newey was talking about yesterday on Thursday that they've put around the batteries to try and keep the vibrations from the engine away from them, which is what's been causing this reliability problem. Maybe, just maybe, that was showing some signs of working.
Well, it was quite a pivotal press conference, as you're right. Not a lot of time has passed here in Australia, but it feels like a lot has happened, and it has. Let's hear a little bit from Adrian Newey speaking in that press conference.
We are short on batteries. We've only got 2 batteries left, the 2 that are in the car. So we lose one of those, then it's obviously a big problem. So we've got to be very careful on how we use the batteries.
Adrian, this is all very reminiscent of 2015 or 2017 for that matter, but Honda have been in Formula One for 12 years now and won the World Championship in between. Have they given any indication to you as to why they're in such a mess? And as a corollary to that, how's Fernando dealing with it?
I think, okay, the first question, a bit of history is important there. Honda pulled out at the end of 2021. They then re-entered the sport kind of at the end of 2022. So over roughly a year and a bit out of the competition. When they reformed, a lot of the original group had it now transpires disbanded and gone to work on solar panels or whatever. And so a lot of the group that reformed are actually fresh to Formula One. They didn't bring the experience that they had previously. Plus, when they came back in 2023, that was the first year of the budget cap introduction for engines. So all their rivals had been developing away through 21-22 with continuity, their existing team, and free of budget cap. They re-entered with let's say, only, I'm guessing, 30% of their original team, and now in a budget cap era. So they started very much on the back foot, and unfortunately they've struggled to catch back up. For Fernando, it's a hard mental place to be in at the moment.
Adrian Newey then speaking after practice 1 and just before practice 2. So some comments that I think, as Andrew says, will go down for the ages. Jenny Gow has been up and down pit lane, patrolling the paddock all day long so far. Jenny, what have you gleaned and seen so far?
Well, in the last few moments, Lawrence Stroll has walked out of the Aston Martin hospitality and skulked off, not looking very happy. They actually closed the doors of these hospitality units. There's pretty much an open door policy most of the time, but right now it's definitely a closed door.
Is there a padlock on the door as well?
No, but there are 2 of the hospitality people who are keeping it closed, and they're very much keeping it closed. So it was closed when Fernando Alonso was in there with Lawrence Stroll. It was then opened. Fernando Alonso has gone down to speak to the media, or speak to F1 TV, and now there's kind of a little summit in there, and Mike Crack, who was the former team principal, was he? They've been through so many different people. He's now gone in there, and Lawrence Stroll has gone in there now. So are they reacting to what Newey said? Are they reacting to the situation with Honda? How does Lawrence Stroll actually feel right now? He, as you said, they're powerless. And someone like Lawrence Stroll isn't used to not being in control of the situation. So everyone you look at here has a glum face, and, you know, they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders, it feels like, when it comes to F1.
I would love to be on Fly on the Wall in that hospitality suite right now. I mean, you just think it is we cannot underplay this. This is there's the car side of it, which is an unknown. Look, it's an Adrian Newey design car. I'm sure the baseline is probably pretty good, but he joined later than I think he wanted to, so they're behind on that front. But also, they're not going to be able to stress test the chassis and the aerodynamics and the design of that car properly and find out where the weaknesses are, where the bits of development are. So there was all this chat about, we're the 5th fastest chassis and all of that. But by the time they're able to actually get proper running from the power unit side, they're going to be so far behind everybody else.
Yeah, so Newey made a calculated decision back in March, April last year when he joined Aston Martin, that was on the 2nd of March, to basically restart the car. They'd been doing some work on it before, but he had his own ideas that he'd been working on while he was on gardening leave from Red Bull. And the first problem was that there was a problem with the calibration of the wind tunnel, so they didn't get it into the wind tunnel until the middle of April, so that's 6 weeks lost again. So they already knew they were starting the season behind the curve, but he was saying today that he thought they would be able to catch up with some aggressive development. And actually, if you look down the sort of list of new parts on the FIA release for this weekend, Aston Martin have got a lot of new parts on that car since testing. Basically all the aerodynamics have changed since the end of testing. But as you say, Harry, they're not going to be able to find out whether the car's any good or not, because they just can't run with the engine. And they've not even talked about some of the second order problems. They've got the vibration that's causing the batteries to essentially implode. You've got the ICE, the internal combustion engine, which is down on power. You've got the electrical part of the engine, the MGUK, which is 50 kilowatts down on power in terms of output. They're limited to 350 kilowatts, which is about 460 horsepower, I think. And it can't recover energy at the maximum level, which is also 350 kilowatts. So there's that. Then the gearbox in testing wasn't talking to the engine properly, so it was making corner entry very much unstable for the drivers, and that corner entry is where all the lap time is fundamentally. So even just leaving aside the engine, they've got a whole load of other things that they need to solve. So we'll never know, I think, probably this year, I suspect, whether this car's any good or not, because I'm very, very surprised if Honda can do anything to make this engine substantively competitive before the end of the next year. Newey was saying in the press conference that they need to make a major uplift in terms of the ICE performance for next year. So no wonder he was looking a bit glum. I did make him smile at the end of the press conference.
Of course you did.
He's normally very quiet and doesn't reveal very much in press conferences. It's like we've all been a bit shocked in the media about just how open Adrian Newey's been. So I've known him for a long time, so I went up to him at the end of this press conference and said, Adrian, you should do these more often, you're really good at it. And he laughed. So at least he's had one smile today.
Well, and it's come from Andrew Benson. Not many people say that, but I suppose if he doesn't laugh, he'll cry. I think Jenny Gao, you were speaking to Fernando Alonso a little earlier. What did you get from that?
Yeah, he was relatively upbeat, actually. It was just a personal chat to see how he was and for him to see how I was, which was nice. But he was quite chipper for what had just happened, which is no running in FP1, as he walks past me right now, actually, with his glasses on. He's got a smile on his face.
Stick a mic in there. Go on, see what happens, Jenny.
I can't stick a mic in there. It won't speak to me. It will just be embarrassing, but thanks. It's quite sweaty, actually, just getting out of the car. It's very, very oppressive down here. Oppressive, not impressive. Although Fernando Alonso obviously is. But yeah, he seemed okay talking to me, but he did say, goodness knows when they're going to get a fix. It might well be after summer. That's a long time, isn't it, just to be languishing around without a fix to whatever Honda's issues are. And this isn't a guy who's getting A, any younger, and B, isn't in a position to challenge for a championship, which is all he really wants. It's all he's ever wanted. And every time he moves to a new team, it seems to be the wrong team at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's the classic Fernando Alonso conundrum, isn't it? Well, look, it's not the first time and it's not the last time we're going to be talking about Aston Martin's woes in Formula One, but we'll park that one there for now. I think let's just cover off a few other things we've picked up from the first bit of running on Friday here in Melbourne, and what has been quite a hot and sunny day so far. The Ferraris look good in free practice one, Marc Leclerc and Hamilton. It was Oscar Piastri and the McLaren, though, who topped FP2. So are we seeing a bit of gamesmanship, turning up the wick on the engines here and there? What's your read on it?
Yeah, it definitely looks like in FP1, all of the Mercedes powered cars were maybe running at a slightly lower power level. That's maybe not a big surprise, right? These are brand new engines, new technology. They're not entirely sure how far they can push them and for how long, so perhaps erring on the side of caution is not a bad way to approach that. In FP2, though, it did look like it had them cranked up to the max, and we really got to see what they were capable of, and that was all of those Mercedes-powered teams taking a step forward. So the two Mercedes looked incredibly quick. The McLarens, Lando Norris a bit behind because he lost a lot of track running with an issue this morning with his own gearbox, but actually the McLaren looked like they're back on the pace. So pretty much where we saw in testing, the top four teams from last year look like they're going to be the top four teams again. The split between them is a very difficult thing to call, and Andrew, you did a bit of crunching the numbers on long run pace, and in the hands of Mercedes, looked fairly ominous for some of the other teams.
George Russell was very, very quick on the long run. The only two teams ran the hard tyre, Harry. That was Ferrari and Mercedes. Ferrari didn't get many laps in because it was a slightly punctuated session. There were some cars stopping beside the side of the track towards the end of the session. But just on the headline numbers, Russell was nearly a second on average faster than the quickest Ferrari, which was Charles Leclerc, and about half a second quicker than his teammate Kimi Antonelli. But as I say, we didn't get a full read on that. We didn't get Max Verstappen's run because he had an off at turn 10 while he was trying to do his long run on the medium tyres, and the McLarens were doing the long run on the soft tyre. So that's a bit annoying for us in the media because we don't get the data. I should be able to get a better read a bit later on, but that'll be too late for this podcast.
But it will go on the BBC Sport website?
It will.
It will. I've just had a genius idea. We should do a post-practice podcast and just call it Benson's Long Run Corner. And that's Benson's own little podcast on a Friday evening. Benson's Long Run Corner coming to a chart topper near you. A couple of other things just to see off, I think. Issues for Sergio Perez and Cadillac, but they were able to run, but then a suspected hydraulic issue at the end for Perez of FP2. Colapinto, as we record this, is under investigation for driving unnecessarily slowly. Hamilton nearly went in the back of him down the start-finish straight. Sainz had some problems in the Williams too. Decent running, as you picked up on, Mark, in FP2 from Audi, and the midfield gaggle. You've got your Hasses in there, you've got your Racing Bulls. Lando Norris was making up for lost time, so too was Max Verstappen. Verstappen ended FP2 6th and 7th. And I think maybe we should just end this quick debrief on one person that's kind of quietly standing out to me in both practice sessions. Kept a calm head, looked quick. Arvid Lindblad in the Racing Bulls, outpacing Liam Lawson each time.
Yeah, really solid sort of debut
And top
weekend.
8, I should say, in both sessions.
Yeah, and if you think back to last year when we had an influx of new rookies, which was their same first opportunity to perform in front of a crowd, and actually the rookies didn't have a great start to the season. It was tricky conditions at times, particularly on race day, but we saw a lot of them in the wall, a lot of them making mistakes, and so far he's tiptoeing his way through this opening weekend, and it's early days, but he's put in a pretty good showing, I think. So that's exactly how you have to do it. You have to start building up as a rookie without making mistakes. It gradually builds your confidence, your self-confidence, and that's what contributes to your performance. So, he hasn't done anything to dent that, and that's a really key way to start the opening round of this season.
Yeah, the pressure starts tomorrow, really, with qualifying, but I have to agree with Mark. I thought he was very impressive today for his first day in a Formula 1 car at the start of his first season. Let's hope it continues.
Let's hope so, indeed. Right, okay, gents, we'll leave it there. I believe, Andrew, you've booked us pizza for this evening, have you?
I have.
Oh, lovely.
You're buying
Excellent.
his pizza. Nice one.
No,
mate.
I know, it's great, isn't
Book
it?
the restaurant.
Is that a new podcast?
Although I
isn't
tell
it?
you, the reservation fee is on my credit card, so you guys better turn up, all right?
We will. We'll see you there, 8:30, I believe. Talk of times, 5 a.m. qualifying on 5 Live. That's the one you want to join us for. And if you want to get up even earlier, you can join us for free practice 3 and that final bit of practice running before we go qualifying. Thank you for your company, everybody, and to Jenny, who's still patrolling the paddock for us. We're going to go and get a slice of pizza, I think. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.